Hello, my name is Jill Coyle, and welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce, where we talk the nitty gritty aspects of divorce and help each other come through this not only surviving, but thriving. I'm a divorce attorney, and I'm interviewing other experts and people just like you who are going through or have been through a divorce, so you can have the latest and greatest information on all things before, during, and after divorce. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. I'm so excited with my special guest today, Pooja Mehta from hailing us from Pennsylvania and New Jersey. We're going to be talking about family law and immigration law and the issues that we have that goes with all of those things with divorce. And I think that this is going to be really impactful for people that maybe are wondering how a divorce could have impact them or their immigration status. And so I think this is just going to be really great. So thank you so much, Pooja, for attending and being here today. I really am excited to talk to you about this.
Same. It's always so wonderful to talk about these issues with other attorneys.
Yeah, so let me introduce you. So she's a solo practitioner at the law firm of Dalal and Mehta in is that Island, New Jersey? Island?
You got it perfect.
Okay. She's a local resident of Burlington City in New Jersey. She assists the immigrant community all over the United States in the specialized areas of family immigration and deportation defense. Being a first-generation immigrant herself, she understands the complicated obstacles that are presented during the immigration process. Her work is focused on not only making sure immigration petitions are approved, but creating strategies with her clients to give them the gift of quality time with their loved ones. In 2021, she started a web series called Our Stories. Oh, I love that. To help counter the recent rise in Asian violence and negative rhetoric surrounding immigrants as a result of the previous presidential administration. Our Stories is dedicated to presenting stories of how immigrants are shaping our lives for the better. Oh my gosh, that I just got chills. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
My family is actually very, very big into genealogy. We are I guess I would say I'm a third generation immigrant. My great grandparents immigrated over here in 1902 through Staten Island. They were Jewish, and they came from what is Ukraine actually area, which was USSR at the time. So so these stories.
What's going on in Ukraine? Do you have family there?
I don't, not that we know,
Not
that are biologically,
likely.
genetically related, but we do have ancestry there. My just a little, I guess, story. I've never told this before, but my maiden name is Weiner, which is Wyner, but my great grandparents spelled it Wiener, which is a very prominent Jewish name. You hear that name pretty, and it was Weiner, and so yeah, so I have a rich, Jewish heritage in my blood, and it's where we get kind of more of the olive skin and the big noses when we look at our genealogy. But we've been doing a lot of research and on our family line to find out, where our roots are and where my great grandparents came from. And so it's just a big what I would say what genealogy has done for us as a family has really helped us understand and appreciate what America has in the past for immigration and for immigrants, and the opportunities it lent my grandparents, who kind of saw the rise in Jewish brutality and discrimination, and which is why they decided with one suitcase to leave their families and come to America for a better opportunity. And because of that, I'm here. So it's one of those things where I recognize that here we are in 2022, and some people want to like distinguish the difference between what was happening in 1900 to 2022. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the Statue of Liberty is specifically there, specifically that we are to bring, people from all over the world. And so what you're doing with, is it's still an absolute prevalent, and it's a problem, and it's a needed work. And so what you're doing is really important.
Thank you. I mean, I just felt that I wanted to do something. I don't know if I figured, even if you can help just a few people with whatever message you're trying to put out there, it's worth it. Because what we always say is our logo is Hum Saath Hai, meaning we are together.
Mm-hmm.
I primarily serve the South Asian population, but that doesn't mean that we don't have other clients. And the whole point is that we are blessed enough to bring about generational changes. So because your great grandparents came here in at the early 20th century, 3 generations later, you're in a position of great power and importance. And I say power intentionally because the rights that we have today are not rights that a lot of women even have in present day countries. So immigration for me is really a calling from the heart, where I feel like we do such impactful work, even though it's a lot of forms and just it becomes mundane, as because it's our day-to-day business. But the reality is that I think both of our work provides generational changes, immediate changes for family members. And it's so great. Our first story, I'll give you a quick
Mm-hmm.
story. The first episode that we did, I reached out to just randomly this local woman that had a very novel idea of creating Hindu religion oriented toys for young children. She's in Forbes 500. I mean, the business has grown wonderfully. What I did not know, so the firm is called Dalal and Mehta because my senior partner was working with us. He passed away last year, and so now I'm a solo practitioner. He's 92,
Sorry.
so you can only imagine how many people he impacted. Point of the story is the individual that we interviewed who created that company, my partner did her father's immigration application.
Wow.
And just within 1 generation, his daughter was able to come to this country, create a brand new concept of a toy. It's hitting the markets internationally. And maybe if she had been in a different country, that wouldn't have been possible. Maybe she would have had other limitations. So
Mm-hmm.
immigration is such a powerful tool if you really sit down and think about the systemic changes you're able to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, when they think of immigrants, they think like, people coming from the Middle East or Indian. Like I deal with a lot, like right now, just my niece is dating and engaged to a Canadian. And he's
That's
actually been
awesome.
in America since since he was 14. He's 23 now, going to school, and he's been here on a
Yeah.
work visa.
Yeah.
And he, they went to Princeton together and played basketball there. So he's always just been on a school visa. And it was interesting. She called me the other day and she said, because he was trying to get eligibility for an extra year of basketball through, because of COVID. And Jerome and McKenna, I'm going to shout you out because you can listen to this podcast and hear that I'm talking about the issue. But Jerome did not get that eligibility year. So now they're staved with this fear that he doesn't have a green card. He is not a permanent resident of America, and he's going to lose his student visa. So they were like calling me like, what should they do? And I was like, we need to get you to an immigration attorney.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that a lot of people think, oh, it's like these big, it's far away, but it's not necessarily that. And it's so prevalent with as with the political changes that happen every 4 years, immigration is very, very, it changes just like family law. And the relation between family law and immigration is huge for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it's the most impactful thing I think would happen on your life. A divorce, is going to be one of the biggest impact things that are going to affect you, your future, and your family. same with immigration. And so you want to make sure that you do it right, you understand the law, the rules, and which is always why I'm just going to lead off with talk to an attorney about it,
Yeah.
and ask questions. So so anyways, with you doing these stories, I think that that also is a great way of educating people, because I also do think that, especially with the media, and I might get, you know, criticism for saying this, there's so
Mhm.
much fear put behind
Oh,
immigration, and
I,
it's
I'm doing, we're doing a webinar later on today on naturalization, and I'm not trying to plug it, but we did a Facebook ad, and one of the and the point of the webinar is if you're 50 or over, there are certain immigration policies that can help you. Maybe if you've been here for 20 years, you don't have to take a certain type of exam. You can take the shorter exam or whatever it is, right? And we were getting comments, and this happens all the time. We have so many hate comments that come on our advertisements. This country is going to the drain. This country is going to the dogs. We need to get these people out, build that wall. Um, and I mean, we just delete it. And initially it would bother me so much, but it's all the more reason why we need to have this dialogue.
mm-hmm,
That's always going to be there. People are always going to say what they want to say. But I think the dialogue that you and I have, Jill, and put out, it's important to give hope to those people that are immigrants. So
yeah,
they do feel empowered and they do feel like they have some resources to help them.
right. And the fear mongering is just we. It's just, this is what our country was founded on, was
Yeah.
immigration, and that's what our founding fathers wanted. So, you know, when we have some of these people that are so fearful in the media that puts out such fearful and hateful speech about it, but then they go back and say we should be following the Constitution. I mean, it boggles my mind. But the media feeds off of fear, and most of Americans eat it up, and that's why they're a
Oh,
$1 billion business. So
okay,
um
7%.
so my first question is, I want to talk a little bit about, like, what is the biggest fear or the biggest issues you see with immigration, and you know, just the fears behind it, like what's
Yeah.
keeping people from walking into your office and being like, I need to talk about this, or what's keeping them back from, you know, what's their biggest fears that they have right now?
I would say one of the biggest recurring things that we've seen is lack of resources. So people will call us, men and women alike, and they'll call us and they'll say, oh, you know, I want to book a consultation, or I want to do this, I want to do that, but can you do it when, but I can't come in because I don't want my husband or wife to know. I don't, can you call me on this other number, or can you, you know, don't email me, or, you know, I'll send money through somebody else, or what have you. um, and when I say resources, I mean that these individuals, and if we're talking about domestic abuse specifically, people who are in tough situations, they don't have a voice, and they are looking for help, and many
Mm-hmm.
times they don't have the avenues to even make a phone call. If we flip to the other side and we say people who, let's say, are in healthy relationships but they don't know what the next step is, a lot of times their biggest drawback is their own Google degree.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
who goes on Google is a lawyer, and everyone, you know, knows what they're talking about. Um, so I think the humbling process that happens when you're in a consultation and people have to listen to you is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and another common theme we'd say is to link up divorce and immigration. If you're specifically in abusive relationships, what winds up happening is clients call us and they say, I don't have any evidence. How do I prove my marriage was real? How do I prove I didn't just come here for a green card? How do I do this? How do I do that? I think one of the most important cases for me was this woman came from India, and it's very common to have arranged marriages. She came here, and um, when you're from small villages, you often don't even have the opportunity to speak to the other
Mm-hmm.
person that you're getting married to. You know, it's very centered around the family and a group dynamic. Well, when she came here after she got married, she realized that he was mentally handicapped, And there's nothing wrong with marrying someone who's mentally handicapped. We've done those cases as well and proved those marriages were bona fide. But it wasn't her decision. That wasn't what she wanted for her life. She didn't sign up for it. So she came, she left. It was a horrible situation. And she said, I was only in the home for like 7 days. I don't have any proof. So how do we prove this marriage is real? So it goes back again to corroborating evidence. Is what do you have? And I'd say those three things, which really comes down to resources to be able to have a conversation, mindset, humbling yourself to know that you don't know everything, and number three, corroborating evidences to prove what you have and what you don't have, are probably the biggest challenges that we face.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen, because especially from the Middle East, these are more of my experiences with this, because of the cultural around marriage, and is that a lot of them, they get married, it's either their family picked the spouse, or it was arranged, so there was some kind of payment for it. And so then they come to America, because usually, I don't know usually, but they leave everything they know behind and come here for a man or a woman that they
with no
never,
support system, right?
no support system.
No support system. Yeah.
And they do that with the fact that they, schoolings, or they just have the idea. So not only are they dealing with the fact that they're married to basically a stranger, they're dealing with the major cultural differences. I mean, having to integrate into such a different culture. And I mean, it is, I would say, probably almost impossible. I mean, it is hard. Like, I feel for these people that have to come, and then it's like they get into these situations where they're abused, or they're, not safe, or they're super unhappy, and they have nowhere to turn. And what, for those people, what advice or what hope would you give them?
You don't have to feel like they have control. We are blessed living in a first world country that recognizes domestic violence and control as being more than just physical. I had a client that told me that, oh, but he's never abused me. Like, and I was like, okay, well, define abuse. He's like, he's never hit me, he's never slapped me. They don't understand that financial control, who can you call, who can you speak to, when can you leave the house? These are all forms of domestic violence. The federal government recognizes that with WAWA, the Violence Against Women's Act. And if I have any message going out to anyone who's watching this YouTube video, please call an immigration attorney. I'm not saying call me, call anyone. There's so many free resources, free people who are willing to do consultations for you, aid organizations. The reality is, if you're married to a US citizen, if you're married to a green card holder, even if you have limited corroborating evidences, we can help you get your green card. You don't have to be stuck. Your children don't have to be stuck. There is a way out, is what I would say.
I love that. So let's talk about that a little bit more in depth, because I think that that's a lot of their biggest fears. Is they come here, they marry somebody that has a visa or has a green card, so they're allowed to be in the country, and then they have to apply. So talk about that process. Like, what normally are they applying for to be able to be in the country? And then what are their usual steps when they're married to move toward citizenship, or to move to a permanent green card?
Yep. So the pathway to, if citizenship is like, the seventh heaven that everyone is trying to go towards, the pathway to that is probably at least 5 years. And if you're married to a US citizen, it can be shorter, but in terms of processing times, you're looking at 5 to possibly even 8 years. So these women feel like they have no choice but to stay. And in 8 years, you are going to have children, you're going to have a job, or maybe you won't have a job, whatever you have. It will become harder and harder for you as time goes by to leave your spouse. When they come into this country, they usually have a stamp on their passport that's proof of a 1 year a visa in this country. It says that they have a green card, but here's the first form of abuse. In order to get your physical green card, the plastic, you have to pay an immigrant fee of about $250 and something to immigration. The first form of abuse is, oh yeah, we filed it. And these women never have their green cards in their hand. So now if they leave, they're worried that people are going to think I'm illegal. The reality is it's okay. Even if your spouse never filed an immigrant fee, that's not our concern. A good attorney will help you get your physical green card. That's the least thing you have to worry about. Once they're here, the next form of control is usually their passport, their foreign country passport, their green card, their social security number. All of these things are locked up in a bank locker that they have no access to. So now that's a federal crime that they have to be aware of. And we always tell our clients to file immediately a police report, because there's no way, there's no state statute that can corroborate the federal statute to protect you.
Okay.
If you feel like you don't want to, right, shake the waters and create problems for yourself, because that's what will happen likely, understand that most cities have shelters for women in these situations. You call the police station. Most police stations, when they're in abusive situations, at least I know for New Jersey, if you identify yourself as someone who's in a violent or aggressive situation, they will ask you, do you need to leave the home immediately? Do you need to get yourself to a shelter? And if yes, a shelter won't be long run, but it'll at least get you out of the home into a situation where you're protected for 30, 40, 50 days, however much time you need until you can relocate yourself.
Yeah.
And then file that police complaint to get your documentation. Now, then what they'll say is, well, we lost it. We don't have it. It's fine. Forget it. What I usually tell my clients is let it go. We'll get new copies. We're in 2022. There's no way that the government is only going to issue one green card and that's the end of it, right? We'll get another one. So point is, it is systemic. Like they will break these individuals down. I won't even say women, because I have men that come into my office that say, you know, they did this. We thought we were going to come together and do this and blah, blah, blah. And that it's nothing like they imagined. And I apologize if I lose focus, because I get so passionate about this topic. But you know, any other thing that I can possibly tell anyone that's watching this is, again, you're not alone. We have helped so many women and men get out of difficult situations. What you need to invest, if you're watching this video, what you need to mentally prepare yourself is for a battle.
Yeah.
More so with yourself, to keep yourself strong. Half the battle is all here mentally, right? Because unfortunately, we have been raised in such ways, even people in first world countries, right? To just do the right thing. And in doing the right thing, you wind up putting yourself last.
Yeah.
And sometimes that has to be the first thing to take care of while you're taking care of your children. A lot of times our clients that are fathers or mothers, they're motivated by their children's freedom, if not their own. So, and that's the other thing that I'll jump to. If your spouse or family member is holding your children's paperwork, that's fine. We'll get copies for them as well. We will figure it out. In America, anyways, children until the age of 18 are allowed education. So you don't even need any paperwork. So there's a way out, is the end point.
Yeah. And I love that, because like you said, the domestic act against women, or I know in every state as a lawyer, and you probably know that there are statutes that will protect men or women from domestic violence, no matter what your status is. And so we can always, in Utah and in Texas, these are where I'm licensed, can offer protection through the court system, no matter, you know, they don't care about your status. So, so just know that there are protections. So I really love that you said that, because I do think that that's so many fears. I've had a few consultations where, you know, they're just in the middle of getting their green card, or they're in the middle of their application and they're just frozen. And another I think something that people do that is very abusive is they threaten them and say, well, if you divorce me, then you won't, you'll be deported, or I'm going to divorce you so
Yeah.
that you will be deported. And they have kids, and they're, it's just this total fear mongering. And like you've said, like, I always say, okay, we're going to get an immigration attorney involved, because I don't do immigration. The fact that you do both is actually really, really special, I think, because it would be very helpful to have your family attorney understand immigration processes in this.
Absolutely.
And I admit that it's just not something that I've practiced. And so I know where I'm good at and what I need help with. So I always refer to my friend that does immigration, but collectively you don't have to wait for the immigration stuff to go through to be able to do the family law stuff, to protect you, to protect your children, to ensure that you are taken care of financially. Have you seen this in your experience as well, where you have maybe a woman, maybe a man come in and say, well, I signed an agreement with my husband that said that I won't go after any of his money, and he'll stay married to me for a certain amount of years or whatever for me to get my green card, or he'll continue to, do that process. I've seen that a couple times in my career. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that, but what I've had similar experiences. And what I tell them is the second I take that to a court, your spouse is finished. No
Mhm.
court in this country is going to uphold a document that guarantees an immigration benefit in return for something else.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
that I'm sure if we do our research, we'll be able to find a statute that goes against that.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and
And I looked at it, or look at him, and I'm just like, this is just extortion. Like, he's
yeah,
harsh, so that's
and
exactly
in fact,
right.
it goes the other way. So as part of your immigration application, whether it's through an embassy process or stateside processing, there's a form called the I-864. It's called the Affidavit of Support, and it basically says that this petitioner, the U.S. citizen or the green card holder, is confirming to the federal government that I'm going to be financially responsible for this beneficiary, the green card holder,
Yeah.
or soon to be green card holder. And the way that it comes up in divorce is divorce is not a termination to the 864. The 864 is a federal contract that forces your spouse to be financially responsible for you. And the way that we use that in divorce, because New Jersey recognizes that case law, we use that in divorce by saying, fine, you don't want to be held accountable for me for the next 10 years, because I think the federal law is like 40 work quarters, marriage, remarriage, or death terminate the
Right.
contract. So if you don't want to be held responsible for me, then we use that as a bargaining chip. What are you going to do for the beneficiary spouse? And you were mentioning that people don't realize that they don't have to wait for the immigration to start the divorce. You're absolutely right, because what will happen is a lot of times immigration will ask for documents relating to the divorce. So if you're not working with a firm that is knowledgeable in immigration and family law, or have a separate immigration attorney, you don't know how you can prepare your family law documents to support your paperwork 2 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line when immigration is going to review it.
Yeah.
At the time, as bargaining chips, we will ask opposing counsel to say, okay, we will agree to XY if your client will give us a statement that's notarized saying that this marriage was a genuine bona fide marriage.
Yeah.
Or that we will put into the settlement agreement that if you want a release of the 864 financial contract, then in return for that, we will agree to provide X amount in alimony or child support, or well, child support is guaranteed by the law anyways. But the point is that immigration and family law go hand in hand so significantly that it's so important to have both in your pocket.
Yeah, the difference is, though, with immigration, you can actually give advice on a 50 state level because it's federal
Yes,
statutes, whereas family
absolutely.
law is specific to state. So I would, I'm trying to think of an attorney in Utah that is prevalent in family law that also is prevalent in immigration. I think in some states it could be hard to find a Pooja, which is great that now me and you can be friends, because I'm just going to call you up and say I need your help with this, and you could make sure that I learn and I do exactly what's needed for these cases.
Absolutely.
Like I
Absolutely.
said, in Utah, it's probably a little bit less prevalent, but we do have quite a bit big Hispanic
Yeah.
community here in Utah, and so we deal with that. And but it's interesting. It seems like when I've dealt with heavy immigration issues and these they've been from the Middle East. So we do have some of that as well. So India and Pakistan and Syria, I've dealt with Iraq. So it's a little bit different, but not different in the immigration process or the family law process, different
In
in
the
their story.
intrinsic stories and
Yeah,
case-to-case management. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've also had to deal with, and this is kind of pivoting, and is I've had to deal with, you know, two parents that they probably both have their green cards or American, or one's an American citizen, one has a permanent visa or whatever green card. But one parent is a, born and raised in China. My other big one was India. And
Yeah.
so those countries recognize and allow those kids, even though they're American citizens, to have dual passports. And
Yeah.
America doesn't recognize dual citizenship, but the other countries do. So you're allowed to have a US passport and a Chinese passport or Indian passport. And so I've dealt with two cases where the parent has taken the children to that country and and refused to bring the children back. And they were dealt with very, very differently in India and in China. And it was so, it's sad. I mean, just, I guess, long story short, both the
Very
children are
traumatic.
still there
Yeah.
because we couldn't get it back. China requires you to have an exit visa. You can't get an exit visa because the children have a Chinese passport. We hired
Yeah.
attorneys there and everything, and they said, well, the kids are half, Chinese, they're welcome to stay here. We're not going to give an exit visa, which means the dad can't go to China and just take the children and put them on a plane. Like he would literally have to cross the border down to North Korea. I mean, which is scary. But so
Yeah.
and then India was different in the fact that India is part of the Hague Convention, but does not necessarily recognize some of the Hague. Yeah, so they're a signer, but they don't necessarily follow it. And so that was a difficult situation as well, where we had to hire mediators down there. And what happened was she was able to file basically a domestic violence protective order in India, and was able to get the court to grant custody and that the children could stay in India, which was even crazier because the kids were living with grandma because mom had a job in America. So mom was back here in California and my client was here in Utah working, and we couldn't get the kids back. Anyways, so those are my two traumatic stories. It was a big deal. I learned a lot about the Hague Convention and international law, dealing with those. Do you deal with any of those issues? And what would advice you would give to help protect from being in those minority situations?
No, I mean, it honestly, anytime there's children involved, one of the first questions that we ask in the consultation or onboarding process is, how likely is it that your spouse is going to abscond with the child or kidnap the child and not tell you, right? And in a lot of times that question is yes. I mean, that answer is yes. And this is where state differences come up. But in New Jersey, what we can do is in situations where we can realize that it's going to be a contested divorce, one of the initial things that I ask for is we file a motion, an emergency motion, and we try to get the passport put into either judicial custody with the judge, or we tell them to put the custody with one of the attorneys. I
Yeah.
don't care who has it, but it's going to stay in the attorney's control.
And make sure
That,
that it's both passports, because
yes, yes, yes.
that's one thing that people forget is that, you know, oh, I have custody of the American passport, but they have a London passport or they have a Chinese passport. For those kids, you need both passports.
So that's number one. The second thing is get an order issued from the judge that the child cannot be removed without obviously both parties' consent. That order is going to be your golden ticket. Without that order, you're going to have doors closed in your face over and over again, because the police will not help you, the embassy will not help you, foreign governments cannot help you. So that's really the first thing that we try to focus on when we have a child custody issue. Now, let's say in this imaginary situation that you do have that order, and now your spouse is completely disregarding it, and you find out that Susie Q is being taken to China or to India or wherever. Immediately, if you can figure out what airport they're about to leave from, call that airport and have the airport notify the airlines over there. We've had that done in a previous case. If you know what airlines they're most likely to leave from, for example, if clients that are going to leave on go to India, there's only a handful of airlines. Call those airlines immediately at the local number, or honestly get yourself to the airport or someone to the airport if you can possibly do that to stop the child from leaving. If that even happens and you're not able to do that, the next thing is you need to contact the American Foreign Embassy in that country. And just know, as you go further and further down the road, it's going to become harder and harder to bring the child back.
Yes.
Once that child leaves American soil and is not in a country that has, I'm going to be politically incorrect here, but as an immigrant, first generation immigrant that's still connected to my roots, I'm going to take some liberties. But the unfortunate reality is that money and bribes can make a lot of things happen in other foreign countries. So the second you're not on American soil anymore, it's going to be a money game. So that being said, if you can contact the foreign embassy, send them an email, call them, let them know that this US citizen child has been kidnapped, file that police report here in America, and then you're going to have to file an immediate action in local court in that foreign country, which is going to be difficult because most courts are going to want you to be there physically present.
Mm-hmm.
I know for India, the attorney can file the action, but ultimately you're going to need to be physically present at some time. One thing that I didn't mention was obviously before the child leaves, if you can catch the child at the airport, but if you can't, then contact the landing airport that the child is going to land at and alert the local authorities. You can alert the local authorities. If you have family members over there, tell them to take the police to the airport. If you don't have local authorities, then yes, local family there, it's going to be much more difficult to get a local police station to go there. But these are some of the avenues that we essentially advise all our clients. The embassies, that emergency court order, contacting and letting local authorities here know that the child has been kidnapped. And then ultimately you will have to file a legal action in the foreign country. And it's a very difficult road to fight at that point.
Yeah, that's what we found. My client specifically with China, they had joint custody. She was not to leave the country without permission of my client. The divorce had been done about 3 years. The child was about 8. And they had agreed that she could go to China, but she had to put up like a $25,000 bond. So we had done all the protections to allow her to go to China with the kid so she could see her ailing parents could see him. And so we thought we had done all the protections, but she didn't come back. And he's spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to fight that. I also did want to make, I love that you made that distinction. There are countries that this would never happen because the country would support the American order and would order them back to America. I get a lot of people that get really, really scared about if they're, are from Mexico or from Peru or from Canada or London, and they're wanting to like tell the courts that these kids can never go to London with their, parent that's been born and raised in England, and the court's looking at them like, what's the problem? Like, so I did want to make that distinction that there are countries that are signers of the Hague Convention that are going to support American orders, and you can put in some very, very strong and protective language in your decree that will protect those kids if for some reason they decide not to come back. But there are some countries that, in my experience now, I would say that you should probably never let your kids go if there's a possibility they could not come back. And China, Philippines, there are certain countries that are not signers of the Hague Convention, and they will not support an American order to bring that child back. So you really want to be aware of that, and just know it's not going to be every country, because I get a lot of people that are like, they can't take the child to Mexico City to see their, Mima. And I'm like, yeah, they can. Like, they'll be okay. So,
and the other thing is, right, the stronger that country's ties are with America, the stronger their desire is going to be to follow through with the order. Because another big problem is that local court judges, like, think about how many judges in Utah have any idea of how the law in China or India or any of these foreign countries are. Absolutely, there's no training. There's no need for any training. So for a judge to take time out of his schedule to learn how to apply the Hague Convention because he just found out that his country is a signatory to it, it's unfortunate, but the chances of that happening in those type of situations is slim to none.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's sad, but it's, awareness is key. So when we're talking about this and we're, giving as much advice as awareness and understanding your situation is key. And I know sometimes, scheduling a consultation with an attorney is super scary. And a lot of times it's cost money. But for my purpose, for Pooja, for you, like it is worth it. And you have to know, like, just meeting with an attorney doesn't mean that you need to hire us, that you're going to spend all this money, that we're going to create some fight. What it's going to do is give you knowledge, and knowledge is power. Understanding your situation and then understanding how the law is going to be able to support it to protect you, your future, your family is key.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, it removes fear, because I think that's a lot of in these situations it's just misguided information that causes so much fear that it paralyzes people from understanding or being able to move forward. And that's why they stay in these horrible abusive relationships for years. And, they have kids, and they're absolutely paralyzed by fear. And if there's anything that me and Pooja can do today is let's alleviate that fear. Know that there's hope. There's hope after divorce. There's life after divorce. There's, through the immigration process. I'm really grateful that you can ease that fear of, you don't have to stay married for your immigration purposes, like that, because I do believe that that's the biggest fear when we're dealing with this. And I think that people need to hear that.
I'll tell you a quick story, Jill.
Love it. Love it.
We just sent this application out on April 4th. So it's so fresh. I've been with this woman, second marriage, in her probably late 40s, early 50s, 2 adult kids, immigrated from India. And her husband, until she didn't realize until here, was with her, the abuse was different. It was lack of control. He just didn't care. He didn't give her any resources. He didn't give her any money. He didn't tell her what to do. She had to figure it out all on her own. Filed her immigration application twice. It got denied because he was intentionally filing it improperly so she wouldn't get her green card. So finally she came to us, we filed it. The big day came after 4 years of being in this country. She finally had her green card interview. We prepped them, we did everything. He went in and lied. He intentionally threw the whole interview off so that way her card would get denied. And she left that interview in tears, and she was shaking. I mean, you could just see visibly this poor woman who is now, in this country illegally. She calls me and she tells me, well, what happened? Because they separated them in the interview. And her husband had convinced her when they went home that it was the attorney. Your attorney didn't file certain paperwork and your attorney screwed your case up. And I had a private conversation with her when she was able to leave the house safely, explaining to her what happened. And then she said, well, now what? Do I have to go back to India? I don't want to stay with him. What do I do? And the conversation that we had with her was so empowering when I told her that, what, are you out of your mind? You don't have to do anything. Just stay here. We're going to get you a work permit. We're going to show what happened. I mean, Wawa is created for women like you. She hired another attorney because of conflict of interest to do the divorce. We're working with that attorney to make sure the paperwork is proper. And she's okay, is the point. She's getting out of that horrible marriage. She feels like she has power. She feels like she has a right to be here. She's not scared. And she kept asking over and over again, you're sure, right? You're sure that I can stay here? You're sure I'm not going to get deported? And I'm like, girl, I will give you my license on a plate if I don't know what I'm talking about. There is hope. It's not just something we're saying to make you feel better. I'm telling you, if you're married to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, there is help.
I love that. What a great story to end our show on. Pooja, what you do is so impactful, so important. I really appreciate you coming on our show, because I know my whole purpose of No One Dies from Divorce is helping people recognize that the divorce is not the end, it's the starting, and it's the platform to launch you to become the best version of yourself that you don't even recognize or realize that you can be right now. And so show after show and through my book, I want to give people that hope, that encouragement to know that you can stand up and be better. So remember that, guys. Pooja, thank you. I am honored to meet you. I'm excited. I hope that we continue our friendship and our connections, because what you are doing is needed. And like I said, I know my strengths, and immigration is something that is not something that I practice. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. It was such an amazing experience. Your message is amazing. And like you said, it's all up here, guys.
Yeah.
Once you make that decision to fix your life and make it better, you won't even know how God is going to present opportunities for that goal. So God bless absolutely. You. God bless everyone.
Thank you. And that's another I love it. I love it. That's another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Tune in next week with more information and guests to help you understand why you are not going to die from divorce. Not only you're going to survive and thrive through it. So thanks, Pooja. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.